stories don't define you. How you tell them will. Hi, I'm Sarah Elkins, your host and chief story maker of Elkins Consulting. In my work with coaching clients, I guide people to improve their communication using storytelling as the foundation of our work together. What I've realized over years of coaching and podcasting is that the majority of people don't realize the impact of the stories they share on their own internal messages and on the people they're sharing them with. My work with leaders and people who aspire to be leaders follows a similar path to the interviews on my podcast, uncovering pivotal moments in their lives and learning how to share them to connect more authentically with others, to make their presentations and speaking more engaging, to reveal patterns that have kept them stuck or move them forward, and to improve their relationships at work and at home. This week's episode of the podcast is a sneak peek of the audiobook, Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will, to be released in mid-November. As a special bonus for listeners, the book will include 2 songs recorded by my band, Spare Change, in my living room in Montana. Keep an eye out for announcements through LinkedIn and via my Elkins Consulting Facebook and Instagram pages, or visit my website, elkinsconsulting.com, to learn more. I woke up the other day inspired to write a blog post encouraging people to really rethink their holidays this year, to avoid trying to make them feel normal and stressing out over obligations they can't meet. Madly typing away, I knew I was onto something important, inspiring even. But for some reason, I saved the article without sharing it or posting it anywhere right away. When I woke up a couple days later, I was faced with 2 struggles. I got notification that our major kitchen remodel would be delayed again, and we will not be back there for Thanksgiving. And 2, I received an email that made me uncomfortable. I had to acknowledge something about myself I didn't like, something I really didn't want to see. Now, it was tempting to hunker down and immediately get back to work, even though I knew I wouldn't be inspired or productive. I'd mostly be spinning my wheels and finding opportunities for distraction. So instead, I forced myself to put on my hiking boots and take the dog for a long walk. I knew if I could just get myself outside for a little while, I would be far more productive for the rest of the day. I was right. As I walked in the snow, in the crisp, clear air, I realized the tone of my article was kind of preachy. It happens sometimes when I have an idea I really want to share, an idea I believe will make a big positive impact on people. But I know better than to write and speak about things as if I'm separate from them, disconnected, that if I want to have an impact, the lesson has to take the form of a story. Now I understood why I didn't post the article. It helped me realize that that was also the thing I didn't want to see in myself. I had been in the mode of advising rather than coaching the person, when I clearly needed to be the latter for that situation. After about 30 minutes and finally feeling more clear-headed, I realized that because of the disappointment of the delayed house project, I had a perfect story to share to make my point about rethinking the holidays this year. Our Thanksgiving and Hanukkah have always been pretty low-key. We've lived at least 750 miles from our nearest family member since we moved to Montana 21 years ago. Even so, the holidays can be stressful for me when it comes time to acknowledge our family far away with gifts that are meaningful, especially because we live so far away and don't see each other often. I recently recorded an episode of Unapologetically Bold, I'm Not Sorry For, with Emily Elrod, hostess extraordinaire. And we talked about removing the word should from our vocabulary. This was in the context of both internal shoulds, like I should go to the gym, or I should eat a salad instead of these potato chips. And also our external shoulds, like you shouldn't eat those potato chips, and you should change your oil every 5,000 miles. Should can be condescending. But worse for me is how it's associated with obligation and guilt. Anyone who has gone to a family Thanksgiving dinner that they really didn't want to go to understands obligation. What they might not realize is that the people at the table know you're feeling obligated and that you don't really want to be there. What do you think that actually does to your relationships? Obligation is the precursor to guilt, and neither are good for relationships. But how do we back out without making things worse? Imagine that you've invited a close friend over for dinner, and she shows up but obviously doesn't want to be there. She thinks she's being subtle, that you don't know, but of course you feel it. She felt obligated for one reason or another, and here she is. Do you notice her distance from you? Does it bother you that she didn't feel like she could say something instead and to cancel or postpone the date? Or are you one of those unusual people who relishes in that feeling of obligation, that it makes you feel good that she came because she had to, but not because she wanted to? I doubt it. What if she had simply said, I can't join you and your family for dinner. It's just uncomfortable for me, kind of chaotic. I'd like to have dinner with just you so we can really connect. Is next Saturday okay? She's being honest about her discomfort. And though it's a little painful that your family creates discomfort for her, aren't you grateful for her honesty? Plus, she's not making up an excuse. And she's asking for a specific time with the specific intention to spend time with you, as opposed to saying, rain check? So here we are, heading into holidays full of should, obligation, and guilt. Now, I had a grand vision of Thanksgiving in our home in our newly renovated kitchen. We've spent 20 years in the house and have done a lot of critical projects inside this 1890 Victorian in the mountains, but we hadn't touched the kitchen until late September of 2020. You can imagine my disappointment when I heard the news that we wouldn't be back in the kitchen until at least the week after Thanksgiving. My vision of hosting our grown sons and their girlfriends in our new kitchen was crushed. Here's the thing I have to remember. Nothing has been normal or predictable about 2020. Our kids know this isn't normal. And if there's one thing they've learned this year, it's that life is unpredictable. Even going to school isn't guaranteed. For the duration of this project, I've been filled with gratitude. We have a place to live while this is going on, a small Airbnb apartment with a fully equipped kitchen. On my walk, I realized I had to practice what I preach. I had to rethink my holidays this year. It's so different in so many ways, including our opportunity to rethink what actually makes us happy, what our priorities are. And we can make adjustments to our rituals and traditions to meet those priorities. We get to decide which ones serve us and our family and which do not. I texted our boys to let them know the change in plans, that we would have a limited Thanksgiving menu this year in the apartment. Turkey, stuffing, cranberries, green veg. I asked them what food was their favorite for this holiday and promised to make it sometime over the weekend, partly because I simply love to cook. Guess what? They're fine with the change in plans. One of them even replied, "It's all good, Mom, as long as we can be together." We're going to celebrate Thanksgiving this year in a completely different way, in a small apartment, filled with laughter, food, and likely some whiskey. We might discover some new traditions and rituals to add to our future holidays. Or maybe it'll be just this one year that we celebrate differently. I know it will be meaningful. And rather than stress about trying to make it as normal as possible, as if normal always equals good, I'll simplify our Thanksgiving celebration. I'm giving up obligation this year and following my heart. Giving and receiving based on the impact I want to have on the people around me, not on someone else's should. What will you do to make this year different in a good way? What new traditions will you create to make this meaningful and special? How will you acknowledge the love for your family if you can't be with them during the holidays? You can do this. You can be creative. I can do this. We've been through so much already this year. Let's make the most of this opportunity. Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Stories Don't Define You, How You Tell Them Will. The book of the same title is now available, and the audiobook version will be released in November 2020. If you're ready to uncover your stories and learn to uncover the stories of the people around you to create stronger connections and healthier communities, visit elkinsconsulting.com. And while you're visiting the website, you can learn more about the book and the work we do to improve communication among teams and through our one-to-one coaching. Thank you.
Now listen to me, honey, while I say, how could you tell me that you